Internet. Have we counted out Joe Biden as a candidate too early? David F. asks. That laugh said so much, Sharyl.
Is he counted out? Because, you know.
Because he's. But you know what? Let me ask this hypothetical. What if, like Whitewater,
yes,
the nothing scandal turns into the something scandal, and then it's too late? And the Democrats have nobody else. The one they would turn to would be Joe.
Even if the nothing scandal doesn't turn into anything, the bottom line is that nobody can consider Hillary inevitable. I mean, the idea of inevitability should have gone out of the window in 2008 when she was inevitable, but then she wasn't because Obama happened. So who knows what's going to happen?
I actually think Democrats will probably look more closely at Jim Webb. He's a war hero. He, especially with national security, probably going to be looking like more of a 2016 big issue than it was in 12. I think, you know, he's from Virginia, which is a blue, purple state. I think he potentially could be, and he's announced that he's, really exploring it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I find it a little bit strange that normally some in the press who you might think would be coming to Hillary Clinton's rescue right now and saying some of the things that you said, that maybe the email thing is not such a big deal, have latched onto it and really taken a grip and taken a hold of it.
You're surprised at that?
I am, that some of the liberal media have done it. That would normally be defending her.
I don't know where you're getting this from, that the media is liberal. The media could give a shit about liberal or conservative. What the media loves is scandal and bullshit.
They're like their own brand of scandal.
So the idea that they would ever take a pass on Hillary Clinton when they could.
I worked in the media, so I'm just telling you, sometimes from the inside, there are considerations.
And I'm telling you from one who watched it.
Well, you can have the different opinion, but it makes me think that there are people out there who are looking for a different idea and a different plan and would like to see something else come along. I don't know what.
Well, I'm one of them. What about you?
Absolutely.
Who do you want?
Everybody should be out wanting a real great.
Are you ready
primary
for Hillary, Arianna?
I'm actually waiting to see what Herman Cain does.
Herman Cain?
Yes, Herman Cain. It's like, and then I will decide.
There's surprising news. We're always breaking news here on this show.
There has not been a Sherman-esque no.
That's right.
Herman Cain has not said, I'm definitely not running. Until I hear that, I'm just waiting.
Yeah, So you think the last time he was just warming up?
Yeah.
That, sometimes you need one under your belt. It's like a starter marriage.
Exactly.
You got to get one
under your... What would you know about that? When's your starter marriage going to happen? Exactly.
Always trying to get...
How did this moment happen?
She takes it as a personal failure.
Exactly.
That I don't have 6 children now. She really does.
I'm going to be the godmother one of these days.
Well... And I'm going to be the godfather. All right. You two, what can you tell us about the legislation you worked on with Senator Gillibrand?
Well, first of all, we're working
She's on the military, right?
Yeah,
she's doing the military.
She did the Military Justice Act, and right now we're working on a bill about college sexual assault, which would really flip the incentives for colleges to actually report crimes and do right by their students. But the interesting thing, too, is we have a bipartisan bill, which is, very rare these days. You have Marco Rubio standing next to Kirsten Gillibrand.
And Lindsey Graham.
Lindsey Graham, again, amazing. So a little bit of the specifics, giving the Department of Education the power to fine, making schools have biannual surveys so we actually have better data so we can improve policy.
Yeah, and also requiring universities to have a confidential advisor on campus. Oftentimes, students have no idea what their options are. They kind of tell them they can't go to the police, it doesn't count. They tell them that they have no rights to actually go through an adjudication procedure. It's kind of like, well, you should just never talk about it.
Who tells them they can't go to the police?
Sometimes it's the really awful dean, sometimes it's the professor, sometimes it's just the guy who doesn't want you to out his fraternity.
Yeah, it's so disappointing. There's so many dumb things that go on campuses. I've been reading instances, we were talking with Sean about political correctness, where they just go nuts. Like, I think it's Mount Holyoke, they got rid of the vagina monologues they were performing because they said it wasn't fair to all women because transgendered women, what about women who don't have vaginas? They deserve a monologue. I mean, that kind of crazy shit. And then they allow actual brutal rapes to happen. It just seems so ass backwards.
Well, it's because nothing happens if a rape happens on campus. I mean, and then the worst that could happen is the Department of Education says, never do it again.
Yeah.
And, well, that happened in Florida State in 2010, and look what happened in 2013.
You know, it also was really eye-opening in your movie is that when you were talking about the Florida State quarterback?
Jameis Winston.
Jameis Winston, who's accused of rape. He was being defended by girls, too. It's not like there was any solidarity there. They were like, hey, no, he's the quarterback of the football team.
Yeah.
We gotta get this bitch to shut up.
Well, I think that just goes to show, you know, you have athletes who are idolized, who are gods walking around as, 18, 19-year-old kids on campus who are enforced, by the school, by their fans, by, alumni who come to those games, and they're never held accountable. If you're making money for the school, if you're winning football games, then who cares what you do off the field? And so I think
But it's disappointing that the young girls themselves, who could have been the victim,
well, it's disappointing
are not
that
on
anybody,
your side.
It's disappointing that anybody would do that, I think, too.
Okay. Sharyl, how would you characterize the relationship between Obama and the press right now?
The relationship is very strained, and I think if you ask...
Is it not with every president?
Somewhat, but I would say more so, and I think that's been expressed explicitly in letters and interviews by reporters from the New York Times, Washington Post, USA Today, Washington Correspondents Association, White House Photographers Association. They have said in many different ways that this is the least transparent and open administration that they've dealt with, and many of them have been in the business longer than I have. There's a...
But it's what they care about. I mean, to get back to this, Hillary Clinton, the day she made her comments about the email scandal, she was talking about women's issues, right? Wasn't that what the press conference was supposed to be about? 20 years ago, she was in China saying women's rights are human rights and human rights are women's rights. And we haven't talked about this, but around the world, the UN just released a report that said 1 in 3 women around the world experience some sort of violence, either sexual harassment, rape, violence, murder.
And some of it codified by the religions
Right.
and countries in which they live.
Not one member of the press asked one question. It was all about email. What was on your server? Why didn't you use... So they don't care. They're not liberal. They're just jackals.
But to your question just of openness, I would say that universally, each administration, from my viewpoint, I've only covered 3, has been worse than the last in terms of lack of transparency. I feel like the federal bureaucracy tends to want to covet information and keep it from us, and that's why the press and others are supposed to make a balance. And this one has picked up and stepped up from where the last one was, I believe.
And
And the next one will.
just a couple of examples, the way they've handled whistleblowers, and also what's happening with detention centers. There are 200 immigration detention centers in America, which have become like gulags. You can't get information, families can't get information. This administration has deported more immigrants than Bush. So, there is a lot wrong. And so the fact that they didn't ask Hillary the right questions doesn't justify what the Obama administration is doing when it comes to transparency.
Okay, what does it mean that Boko Haram is joining ISIS? Ah, yes. Boko Haram, a couple of days ago, told ISIS they want to get hitched, and ISIS thought it over, and the wedding is going to take place now. They're going to. It's like The Bachelor.
I had a piece.
It's really very romantic. Is this kind of coalition making them more dangerous? Well, yeah, of course.
I had a piece on this earlier this week, and the problem that you have is the leader of Boko Haram in Nigeria is a guy called Abu Bakr Shakal, who is basically a psychopath. And I don't use that as a kind of flippant line. One of the things Boko Haram is known for is leveling villages, but they also like to go to student dormitories, lock the kids in there, set it on fire. Any kids who escape through the windows then get caught by it, and they'll slit their throats. So it's the counterpoint to ISIS. The problem is, with joining, it's about the metastasis of Salafi jihadism, which is the particular brand of Islam they both subscribe to. And the Islamic State, the kind of narrative that it's been able to survive and that it's expanding, is deeply appealing to people. It gives...
It's violent extremism. There's no Islam involved with it.
But
they're literally uncomfortable about that.
But it's Salafi jihadism. It's a specific... You look at the tenets.
Believe me, I know. All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.